Treasurer, thanks for talking to us.
Thanks for having me on.
Now, you're forecasting a return to surplus next year. Does it suggest that this budget need not have been so austere, or could have been more generous?
No, the surplus projection is pretty small. It's predominantly been achieved by not spending all the extra dollars that are coming into the New South Wales Treasury, and it's only been achieved because we have reprioritised a lot of funding away from areas where it wasn't yielding a good result and pumped that money back into helping families and fixing our essential services.
You've called this budget one in which essential services, the essential workforce is being supported and repaired. It certainly gives a picture of a state that can't afford some of its bigger ambitions and aspirations. So no cosmetic changes to Circular Quay, no tunnel through the Blue Mountains, paring back water security, much greater housing affordability, faster regional rail, that all goes to God. Is it your view that the times call for a relatively small picture budget?
No, we are spending more in infrastructure over the next 4 years than what we inherited. But equally, we are borrowing this money from our kids and our grandkids, so it's our job to make sure that it's being spent well. And equally, we have so many communities that are crying out for a local school, that need an upgrade to their local hospital, that are having to drive on roads that are busted with congestion. We would prefer to offer those people real progress right now, rather than promise a fantasy project or a vanity project in a decade's time.
There's $2.2 billion in this budget for roughly 9,500 additional homes, plus utilities infrastructure. That's spread out between the next few years. The forward estimates are right up to 2040. That's not really enough to address the housing crisis as it is it?
Well, we're not going to say that that's going to solve the housing crisis by any means, but it sends a very clear message about what this government will do. We are putting a publicly owned company back into the housing market, Landcom, showing people what is possible when you don't privatise public assets. The fact that Landcom is returning to the housing market at scale is important. And yes, there is a lot more work to do.
Now, concurrent with this housing crisis, we've got high labour costs, rising land values. These present a challenge to actually building more houses, right?
Well, there's always swings and roundabouts when it comes to the state's revenue figures. It is the case that we need to build more homes for people to live and rent in. And the fact is, had we built more homes over the last decade, we would have more homes for people to buy and rent today. We have been missing our housing targets now for many, many years. It's a national issue, but this government is laying the foundations to start to turn around the housing crisis.
There's been a significant upgrade in the forecast revenue, and there are external factors, things like the global economy, interest rates, natural disasters. There are a number of things that could go wrong here that are outside your control, aren't there?
Yes, there is. We are paying close attention to what the impact of 12 interest rate rises has had on people's spending. Equally, we are watching closely what's going on in our key trading partners like China and the United States and Europe. We are in uncertain times, which is part of the reason why this government is determined to rebuild our financial firepower so we can respond to any shocks that might be coming our way.
Is New South Wales' long-term budget position unhealthily dependent on land scarcity and housing shortages to support that sort of revenue?
I think that it's a volatile figure, our stamp duty revenue, but there's no doubt the state has relied on stamp duty for a long time to deliver people's schools and deliver people's hospitals. The better solution to keeping house prices stable is to make sure we're building more homes. For a long time, our population has grown faster than the numbers of homes available for them to live in. We've got to turn that ratio around so we can deal with the long-term structural pressures in our housing market, not just the short-term issues that are presenting today.
Are you still anticipating a loss of either of the two remaining AAA credit ratings, and what do you expect that will do to the reputational risk on how New South Wales is perceived?
Well, we have done a better job of repairing the books than what we have, but we'll leave the rating agencies to make up their own mind.
Would it alarm you if they were to remove those AAA
Well,
ratings?
other states right now with lower credit ratings pay less to borrow than we do. Equally, the United States government got downgraded. Obviously, we would prefer to pay less for our borrowing than we have to, but I am looking very closely at the fact that states like Queensland that have a weaker credit rating than we have pay less to borrow than we are.
We've come out of a period of some significant economic shocks. I'm thinking of COVID particularly, where we're still paying down that episode. What position are we in now to sustain another disaster, particularly with El Nino right around the corner?
Well, as a result of this budget, we're in a much more robust position than we were 6 months ago. We've lowered gross debt by $14 billion, which is the biggest reduction in gross debt achieved without privatisation in New South Wales history. We will be paying our creditors $2.3 billion less than otherwise. That gives us more financial firepower to respond to natural disasters and economic shocks. It is the reason why this government has taken a careful, deliberate and balanced approach towards fixing our essential services, getting us ready for the future and repairing the books.
Daniel Mookhey, thank you.
Thank you.